And so you've created the erotic blueprint, which is sort of like love languages, but for your sex type, right?
Exactly.
Super, super interesting. Yeah, tell us about that.
So there are 5 erotic blueprints.
Okay.
Do you want me to go through them?
Yeah.
Okay. So the first one is an energetic. And an energetic is someone who's turned on by space, anticipation, tease, longing, yearning. In their superpower, they can have sexual experiences that go into multiple dimensions of awareness. And so in that, you may hear of transpersonal experiences, something like, oh my gosh, I remember when we were soulmates from a past life. Like that's a very energetic type of speak. As soon as we collapse space, they lose eroticism. And you'll see, as I explained some of the other blueprints, how that then ties into compatibility. The energetic can have orgasms without being touched. So like you and I could have energetic sex just sitting here because we don't even need to touch each other for that. So presence is their number one thing.
Is it as fun though?
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Really?
The orgasmic possibilities are quite extraordinary.
Wow.
Did you see the Netflix show? Sex, Love, and Goop?
That you're on?
Yeah,
no.
So in episode 2, I do a whole energetic orgasm with my partner where we are just playing and he's not touching me and I'm having orgasms. So
Fully clothed.
Fully clothed. Yes. So
Jeez. Completely
possible for energetics and very, very fun to play with.
What do you prefer? Do you prefer like energetic sex or like the real deal?
I like them both, but that's my blueprint map. Definitely. And I'll share a little bit about that. So,
Whoa.
And why that would be for me, why I would like the energetic is like a doorway in to a different blueprint.
I'm fascinated by this.
Yeah.
So no genitalia involved.
No genitalia involved, but energy between the genitalia involved.
Wow.
Absolutely.
I would imagine you have to be really high in like openness and suggestibility on the
openness. Yeah, definitely suggestibility. All those tests, where you're like just something suggestive, like this one where it's like, okay, open your hands. For those of you who can't see me, I have my fingers interlaced and my palms pressed together and I pretend that it's a block of wood and then try to open your hands. Well, there's nothing preventing me from opening my hands. It's just the suggestion that I can't open my hands like it's a block of wood.
Whoa.
That then prevents me from opening my hands. So it's a very similar thing with an energetic where just the energy of the suggestibility or metaphor can take them into these high arousal states or multidimensional states of arousal.
Wow. And if you've never had an energetic orgasm before, like what does that feel like?
Okay. It feels like for me, like electricity is building in my pussy. And it's building. And it's like sparkles almost, sparklers going off. And then that energy starts to move through the rest of my body. And I can use breath, I can use sound, I can use movement, I can use different tools to start to bring that through my body. And then as that goes through my body, it's like that vibrational energy then starts to move through my entire spine and sometimes into my fingertips or my toes, but mostly up my spine for me. And then that keeps rising up my spine until I start to get like out the top of my head or sometimes just a lot of energy into my head that then starts to create an expanded state of consciousness. So I go into, like with breath work or psychedelics, the brain, I surmise that the brain is producing DMT and the pineal gland is releasing excretions that are causing some of these like visionary experiences and light shows. And I get a lot of visuals too with it now.
Whoa. And is it like the feeling of climax?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. So, for me, it's better because it's not, for me, like a sexual climax is like a genital sneeze. It's kind of like,
a genital sneeze.
A genital sneeze.
Wow.
Whereas this is like, I'm taking the intensity of when you're about to sneeze and I'm bringing it through my whole body so that I'm having more of a whole body vibrational experience.
I'm never going to think about orgasm the same way again.
Yay.
Genital sneeze is such a great way to think about it. Okay, so...
And that's average sex. Average sex, we have genital sneezes. Which there's nothing wrong with genital sneezes.
Yeah.
Sometimes a good sneeze is amazing.
Yeah.
But to have a different experience is
it's almost like pizza.
There.
Like even bad pizza is
good.
Still pretty good.
Yeah.
You know?
And then you have a delicious one every now and then where you're like, oh my gosh, that was a pizza.
Exactly. Okay,
and it nurtures everything too.
It does.
You know?
Yeah. So your erotic blueprint is energetic.
Primarily energetic.
Primarily. So you can have more than one.
Yeah. Everyone has a map of their blueprint. And so we each have different percentages of each one of these blueprints, but I'm highly energetic.
Highly energetic. Okay, so what's the next one?
Okay, so the next one's the sensual. And the sensual is someone who's turned on by all of their senses being ignited. So touch, collapsing the space, whereas the energetic loves all the space. The sensual wants to collapse it. So think slow dancing. Think of what we think when we think of romance around sex. Hot baths, chocolate, all the yummy things that ignite the senses. The superpower of the sensual is that they bring the beauty to the erotic experience. They're going to light the candles, put on the music, have flowers in their space. But the shadow side of the sensual is that they're always stuck in their head. Because they're often thinking about, oh, that pillow's crooked. I need that, or I forgot to call that person. The mind gets running with the sensual, and they get worried about things, bad breath, body image, and then they're not feeling the pleasure that's all over their body. For the orgasm, like we were talking about with the energetic, the sensual is someone who can have orgasms anywhere in their body. So, going down on them behind their knee. I like crevice sex, I call it, where, you go into a crevice on their body somewhere and you go down on it like, it's a vulva.
Whoa.
And then you've got really, my mouth starts to water when I start talking about the sensual.
It's so cool. Crevice sex.
Crevice sex.
Wow. Behind the knees.
Behind the knees.
I've heard of that, or maybe I just read it in Cosmo or something, but that's a erogenous zone for many people.
Absolutely. So we have different erogenous zones. So there's primary, secondary, and tertiary erogenous zones. Primary erogenous zones are the places we think of, and they're often where there's mucous membrane. The mouth, the vulva, the anus, the tip of the penis. These are places that are primary erogenous areas. Now, when we get into the secondary erogenous areas, these are the crevices. These are these places where the skin is just a little thinner. And so we often want to start with the secondary during sex. People think, oh, I'm going to go for the primaries because that's where all the juice is. But the primaries don't always get online until the secondaries have been stimulated in some way.
They need to be warmed up.
Exactly. And so we can blow, kiss, lick on any of these secondaries, and then the primaries are more activated. And then finally we have the tertiaries. So tertiaries, like the end of the pinky finger is a tertiary.
Whoa.
The ear in certain places is a tertiary. We have erectile tissue in our nose and our face and the roof of our mouth. And so some of these areas also can be turned on as we go along.
Mind blown. Actually, I knew that about in the nasal, in the paranasal sinus area, we have erectile tissue. Analogous to what goes on down below.
Yep. I think of it as a tube. We develop here and then we just go, and so we have analogous tissue between the bottom of the tube and the top of the tube.
Fascinating. Okay, so the sensual blueprint, that I feel like is pretty common. That's maybe a little bit more common than the energetic blueprint.
It's interesting. So we've done the quiz now. I think we've had a couple million people now fill out the quiz. And it's interesting to see the data, and that we have, based on gender, I think we suppose that men are a certain way, one of the certain blueprints I haven't got to yet, and that women are a certain way, like all women are sensual. And what we found is that it's actually even energetic and sensual between people who identify as cisgendered heterosexual women, and men are across the board, all five pretty much.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's really fascinating. Now, that could be people who fill out our quiz, but it's interesting to me to see that some of the things we assume are not accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So men are equally proportioned amongst
almost all the blueprints.
Wow. Yeah. Okay, so sensual. Sensual sounds lovely.
Yeah, it is lovely.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm sensual per se, but yeah, it definitely sounds like I feel like I've romantically been involved with sensual types. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I guess the downside is that they rely on that extrinsic, right, stimuli.
Right. And they need to relax in order to have sex. And so if a sensual is stressed out at all, it can be really hard for them to get into the space where they're like, oh, I'm just not in the mood. Well, most of us, if we wait until we're in the mood, we're not going to have sex. As opposed to just, okay, let's do the things that we need to get warmed up into that realm and into the erotic realm.
And we live in stressful times.
We do. So all that high stress then is lowering libido, and it makes sex not as good because then you're in your head, thinking about all the things that need to be done instead of really paying attention to all the yumminess that's in your body.
All the yumminess. Okay, so moving on. How many are there again?
There's 5.
Okay, so moving on to number 3.
The sexual.
The sexual.
And
But aren't they all sexual?
No, okay, so this is an interesting story. I won't go into the whole thing, but I have a lover who he and I are energetic blueprints together. And he's gay, which is really interesting, because he identifies as a gay, homosexual man. And here I am. And we fell in love with each other 20 years ago.
Whoa.
I trip over my words when I talk about him because we're very in love with each other. So
I love that.
And so anyway, we've had this relationship that has been energetic and sensual. And then recently I was like, we just don't meet in the sexual blueprint. And he goes, yeah, that's why you called them the erotic blueprints, Jaiya, because we are very erotic together. And I think that that's interesting how we conflate sexual with erotic. And that these other blueprints are actually very erotic. The energetic is very erotic. The sensual is very erotic. The sexual blueprint, and this is interesting because it may tell me a little bit about you, and that you asked me that question. The sexual blueprint is what we think of as sex in our culture. So we think of intercourse, we think of nudity, we think of getting to the orgasm, we think of ejaculation, and that equals sex. And that's part of the shadow side of the sexual blueprint, is that we actually have this limited definition of what sex is. Sex means penis inside of a vagina, moving, until we have an ejaculation or some kind of orgasm that's happening. And so that's very limited when you start to look at the whole map of all the other blueprints. And so the superpower is that sex is simple. It's like pizza. All pizza is good.
Yeah.
And sex is something that sexuals have in order to feel relaxed. So I said the sensual needs to relax in order to have sex. The sexual likes to have sex to feel more relaxed. They feel like everything's right in the world. Sex is like food, air, water. It's like, oh, this is something that I need, and I've had my orgasm. Now I can breathe
Interesting.
again.
I appreciate that. But I feel so they're all erotic, but not necessarily. So you wouldn't call the sensual blueprint necessarily a sexual blueprint?
No.
Nor
erotic.
Okay.
Eroticism to me is like life, art, love, beauty. It's these fundamental alivenesses of what it is to be a human and in a human body experiencing pleasure. And so the sexual is just one aspect of that.
So the sexual type just wants to get it on.
The sexual type just wants to fuck.
Just wants to fuck.
Yeah.
Got it. Is there anything like, and you kind of mentioned that it's a little limited, right? But when it comes to getting it on, there are so many different permutations.
There are so many different permutations.
It's not that limited.
It's not. And so sexuals actually don't lack depth.
I would think that would be the most common amongst men.
It is the most common amongst men.
Is it?
Well, we have across the board, but it is the number one, like the highest percentage.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so sexual. Are we getting are we progressing towards in terms of kinkiness, or in terms of, are these arranged in any particular order in which you're delivering them, or it's just they're in no particular?
This is the order that I discovered them in. And so the first one that I was like, oh gosh, this person's wired energetic. Yeah. And then I started noticing a few days later, I was like, oh, they're sensual. Whoa. And then I started to notice these in order. And so that's the order that I've been teaching them in.
And there actually is a kinky
There
blueprint.
is a kinky. It's the next one.
Interesting.
Yep.
Okay. So the next one is kinky.
Yeah. So the kinky blueprint.
Tell us about that.
This one is somebody who's turned on by the taboo. I start giggling because taboo. We're
Taboo's
talking about
fun.
The taboo. Taboo's totally fun.
Yeah.
And so in the taboo, we have two different types of kinky. One is more sensation based, and one is more based on psychology.
Got it.
So, and some people are a mix of both of them. So I'll tell a little story about my partner Ian and I. So we
how many partners do you have?
I have 5 partners.
So this is poly? Is that what they call it?
Yeah, poly.
Got it.
Yep. It's a very interesting world. Maybe we can talk about it a little bit more. So the kinky is somebody who has this, whatever is taboo for you. And so the psychological kinky is someone who really has the power dynamic aspect of it as part of their turn on. So my partner and I, we were 6.5 years into our relationship, and we were really hitting a slump in our relationship. And here I am, a sexologist. We had a baby together. We were really going through a struggle. And he would come to bed at night and he'd want to cuddle with me. And I would touch his genitals and I would be like, do you want to have sex tonight? Do you want to fuck tonight? And he would be like, ugh, and turned off by that. So I'm approaching him in a certain blueprint. He's approaching me in a certain blueprint. And we're crossing wires, mismatched. And this was before I had the blueprint, so I wasn't privy to what was going on at this time. And I would roll over and cry myself to sleep at night because I'm the sexologist. I'm supposed to be having hot, juicy sex. Like, what is wrong here? And he would just get turned off by the obvious. I started strip teasing. I'd like have my butt in the air and my little G-string. And he'd be like, why are you doing that? And it was turning him off because he's 0% sexual.
Interesting.
And I was highest in sexual at that time. I was sexual energetic.
So these like change over time.
They can change based on life and where you're at in your life circumstances.
Hey, if you liked that video, you need to check out this one here, and I'll see you there.